If you're a PD, you've probably done this more than a few times. You listen to a radio station, a really good radio station, one that has really good ratings, and ideally, one in a big market, like, one of the top 10 markets, and you're listening to it and you go, I wonder what they do. I wonder what they do. Boy, it would be great if I could actually see their music system. Well, we're going to do that. Hey Buckaroos, welcome back to Music.com Academy. Today it's going to be a short lesson hopefully, and it's going to be one of 10 separate lessons. I'm going to go one format at a time. Today it's going to be AC this week. Next week it'll be a different format. But what we're going to do is, I'll tell you, we're going to look at AC radio stations, successful AC radio stations in the top 10 and top 12 markets, and we're going to pick out and know exactly what they do, how many recurrents exactly they play in a week, how many gold they play exactly in a week, how many overall titles, how many current songs do they play in a week, okay? 7 days, this is specific. These are, this is not guesses, this is not like, oh, I think I figured it out, maybe. This is like absolute. It's absolutely what they do. Now, you won't be able to see the stations, like I'm not going to tell you, the call letters, but you will, or the markets, but you'll see, in this instance, you're going to see 10 or 12 different radio stations, and you're going to see, okay, this is how many songs they play, here's the recurrents, here's their currents, here's their gold, wow, what kind of, and then we'll talk about it, we'll mess with it a little bit as to the percentages of one thing versus another, and, and all that sort of stuff. So let's go to the computer right now, and we will go through that. Okay, these are 12 AC radio stations that are really strong in their particular markets, and the markets are the top 12 markets. There's a lot of markets which I was sort of surprised where there wasn't that many of a particular format. Actually, there would usually be none, or they were so far down that it was like, well, I'm not taking these because these are lousy radio stations. So, and you'll see that as we go through these other formats during the other weeks. But anyway, these are 12 radio stations, and they're all in big markets like, 1 to 12, and they do different things, as you can see. I mean, just looking at the amount of plays overall, I mean, this is, it's kind of sorted going this way. You got basically almost 2,200 spins, and you got 1,900 spins. So that's like, almost 300, 300 spins different in a week of just any song whatsoever playing. And the average was roughly 2,061. That's kind of what it averaged to. So unique titles, okay? Let's start right here, and I'll go through section by section just so you have an idea what you're looking at, although you probably have pretty much figured it out just by looking at the titles. So unique titles, this is the universe for that particular week. So this 591, my guess is this radio station probably has at least another 50, 60, maybe another 100 songs or more that, that's actually in their full library. But this particular week they played 591. Next week they may also play 591 again, but it won't be the exact same 591 songs because probably 30, 40 songs of gold will probably tear out and another 30 will come in. That's probably what's going to be happening probably for most of these, if not all of them. Then these are the current songs. How many current songs do these AC radio stations play, period? This one plays 10, 12, 5, 12, 1. Now the average for this is 675, okay? We'll come back to that. 675 is the average. Let's move ahead to recurrents. How many recurrents would this station play? It plays 10 of them. This one plays 23. This one plays 27. This one here that had only 264 songs overall, it plays 16 recurrents, but it plays them 254 times. And we'll do the math on that. We'll come back to that. Current songs, they have 8 of them, and they play those 223. Not the fastest or the most, but it's more than most, and certainly faster than most. This one clearly being the bottom one. It played one current song one time. So this is kind of almost like a, kind of like a gold AC station, pretty much, although they have, a few recurrents in here. Now, one of the things that I was curious myself, and I just want to point it out to you, you can't see it on here. If you look at something like, just for current titles alone, so if you looked at something that plays like 12 currents, this one plays 12, this one plays 10, these particular 3 markets, The exact same thing is actually occurring that I'm about to tell you about in the low ones, the 2s and the 1s and the 2s, okay? There's 1, 2, and 2. Really weird dynamic in that when I went and looked at the markets, I don't know if it's the reason why or it's just the PDs, but in those markets, top 40 stations tended to be weak in both of those instances, okay, for the most part. So if they were playing a lot of currents, it could be, I don't know. It could be because there were no really super strong top 40 radio stations. On the same side, for the stations who were playing virtually no currents at all, the 1s and 2s, it was the exact same dynamic. The other dynamic for the stations that were playing like 5, 6, 8 currents, kind of in the middle, they actually had reasonably strong top 40 stations. In other words, in most of these instances, the AC station would be like 1, 2, or 3, almost all of these markets really, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then the CHR, if there was one that was decent, was maybe 5 or 6 or 7. But then the exact same thing would occur if, same thing, ACs are 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, and then the CHR is like 11, 12, 13, 14. Or there's 2 CHRs and they're like 10 and 12. It was really funny. I kind of expected it to go one way or the other, like kind of like, you know, if you got a lot of strong CHR radio stations, you would be maybe playing either less currents to get away from them, or you would be playing more currents because they're breaking them for you, but that just wasn't the case. You know, there was sort of like almost no rhyme or reason that I could see. Moving on the recurrents, I mean, these are the way they stack up, and there's the average, 11, but as you can see, got 2 stations in the 20s, 23 and 27. So, and when you put them together, you go, this is a lot of titles for currents, these 2 12s here, and a lot of recurrents they're being played. And even this one at the 12 and 13. So they're definitely more current feeling, current leaning AC radio stations, okay? And then the other one's the same thing. This has got 2 recurrents total. If there's 2 and there's only 7 plays of recurrents, this is coming up every other day. Crazy math to me for an AC radio station, but obviously it works for them. And this is the overall plays of gold, and these are the amount of gold titles. So again, as you can see, let's just jump all the way over to here. The unique titles in this particular radio station is 264, of which 240 of them are gold. 16 are recurrents, 8 are currents. You add 8 and 16, it's 24, and 240, there's your 264. So, you know, it's really fascinating to know that this is what works, and these are successful radio stations, top 12 markets. And over here, one last thing, here's the average years of each station. This one obviously being pretty current. This was the one with the 12s and the 27s. 2011 is the average year. Let's go with the other one with the 23. This is interesting, which means this gold has got to be being back farther than most gold, because they have 12 currents, they have 23 recurrents, and they're playing them a pretty fair amount. It's 1, 2, 2, 6, about 270 times, 270 plays. But yet the average year of the radio station is 1997. So they're probably concentrating in the 80s and 70s and maybe early 90s. They're back pretty far what they play. Where this one is sort of the outlier at 2011, everything else is sort of in the same realm. This one is an outlier here, also at 1992, but then again, it doesn't play hardly any recurrence at all, really none to speak of. So therefore, you know, it's going to feel old. Average age of all of the stations, average year, 1998. Let me just show you some few other things here, just to, because you're probably curious about it. If I take these and I want to get rid of the outliers, watch what ends up happening. Let me just throw this in here just so you can see it work, okay? Same numbers, everything's the same. So let's take out the 1, and we'll take out one of the 12s, okay? 680, 675, pretty darn close. It basically did nothing. Let's take out another one. We'll take out, what's the next one? We'll take out a 2, take out another 12, 675. I found it fascinating that if you take out the outliers, it still pretty much averages the same, which is kind of weird math to me. So I know this has been sitting on the screen as I've been talking about it, and you've probably been looking it all over, but if you're really curious, I mean, I'd leave this lesson for you as a frame of reference for an AC format. If you're trying to build one, just come to this page and just put it on pause, copy the numbers, look at them, try to think about them, giving whatever you're doing. One of the things I tried to do, and it's kind of tough, you can sort of do it for recurrence. Let's just take this one because maybe, hopefully, it's easy math. If you have 93 plays of recurrence in a week, you could very easily just say to yourself, okay, I have 93 plays in a week. Well, there's 7 days in a week. Let me divide that by 7 and see how many recurrence play per day. Well, 13. Well, I have 10 of them. So there's 13 that play per day, but I have 10 of them. So just looking at this, assuming there were no tiers, 10 going into this, it's going to come out to just that mass. You can kind of see it. 10 would be, 1.3 times a day. So they would play once, and then some of them would come around a little bit more. Usually, probably 3 out of the 10 would repeat at some point. Okay, and let's do the same thing for this math here. Let me just see this one if I can bring it down. Okay, so basically 16 plays of recurrence per day, but I have 23 of them. So if 16 play in a day and I have 23 of them, well, that's going to be a lot slower. You can see that because, this number was less than that number. This number is bigger than this number. So you get a little bit of a grasp for this. Again, if there's no tiers, you could say, all right, well, there's going to be 23 titles, and they seem to play roughly 16 times in a day. What does that do? Well, that means they're going to be coming around about every day and a half. So on a 24-hour clock, they're going to be roughly turning around every 36 hours. That's kind of what's going to be happening here. Hope that made sense to you. And you can figure this stuff out the same way. But, again, I'd be really careful about the numbers that come out because you don't really know what... This probably is the only category you really know what you're looking at. There's a power goal in this one, and of the A's, B's, C's, and that kind of stuff in the current titles. This is the only one that might be all on its own. I think that pretty much exhausts AC, don't you? I think we've pretty much picked those bones apart clean. So you should pretty much have a good idea now of the top end of a successful AC radio station, what they do, and the bottom end of other types of AC radio stations and what they do. And I hope that helps you out a lot. If it did, subscribe to the channel. I think we're at 695 PDs that are watching this thing week after week. But sometimes I don't actually do it every single week. And sometimes something gets in the way and I got to push it off for a week. So if you hit that bell, that'll give you a notification that there is a new lesson. And of course, if you like any of the lessons, just hit the like button. So subscribe, like, bell, all that sort of stuff. That makes everything great for me doing the channel. Okay? And until that next lesson, see ya!